this lodge where my hero shows up, and this dysfunctional Anglo family who's busy speaking to each other in code that only they understand. So that, I mean, we've all felt like that. When I say, now Barbara, I really like that mug. Now, that could actually be an insult to you if you and I have a history about mugs.
That's true.
But to someone else listening, they would have no idea why you would be annoyed at me for saying that.
Oh,
and that's how all their conversation is like that. They're all prickly and they're bumping into each other all the time.
Well, it's all laden with subtext.
That's
Some
right.
of which you interpret for the reader, and occasionally the reader, I think, just has to sort of guess.
Figure it out.
And your beautiful Manoir Bellechasse is really a giant log cabin, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is. It's a great big log cabin. It's like an Adirondack lodge, big log
Something
cabin.
you might find at Mackinac Island too. Where you have, wonderful porch, and you have, the deep shade, and you have the, the chairs where everyone can sort of sit out and
lounge out. Yes,
right.
And overlooking the lake. I wanted that. I love that. Again, that duality, the rustic exterior and the elegant interior and the luxury inside, almost hyper luxury inside.
It is
It's unexpected,
but significantly lacking in one thing. No air conditioning, which means as the heat wave rises in your novel and the black flies, which are absolute curse in the Canadian woods.
You don't get black flies here, I guess.
No, we do. Actually, Arizona, the one blessing of it is there's very little bug life because, especially if we get a freeze in the winter, but it's too hot for lots of things to flourish. So mosquitoes and flies are relatively rare. But I have hiked in the New Brunswick woods and felt like I was being eaten alive.
People go nuts. They drive people crazy. And particularly many years ago, the explorers used to be driven crazy by the bugs.
They're horrible. They're also, I am now in a position to tell you, the same in the woods in Chile.
Oh, is that right?
They're equally awful, yeah.
Oh.
And
so
they
you've
do,
been exposed to a lot of these bugs,
a lot,
have you?
and they do have
been
a
driven
relatively,
crazy,
yeah.
That would explain
I have
two
learned
things.
to, would explain a lot of things. I have learned to cover up. Because that really does help if you don't have a lot of exposed skin. And there's some killer bug repellent. You also need this in New Zealand, another spot. But the black in Alaska, which is a very
they'll carry you away. They'll pick you up and
like
they take
small eagles, right? There's some very good bug spray and other stuff that you can do. But the point is that because
What
the
is
hotel,
the point, Barbara?
there was a point, which is part of the point in your book, is that everybody is rendered uncomfortable by the heat and by the flies. And so
That's
you've
true.
got another kind of
Yes, that
constant
sense of
irritation
a little,
going on.
Yes, just a slight irritant, and then the storm. And I loved writing about the summer storm marching down the lake. As you could see the weather coming, of course. You could see it from a distance. In the cities, you don't necessarily see it because it just suddenly, a cloud burst overhead or the clouds show up or something happens. But in the country, often you can see the weather coming. And if it's a particularly horrendous storm, it's a very frightening event.
It was so classic, a dark and stormy night.
Yes, thank you.
And then you got, of course, the murder. I mean, it's wonderful. And I really liked, without wanting to reveal it, I really loved the technique of the murder. Not just the murder, but the way you executed it was particular. I think it's truly original. I've been trying to remember if I've ever run into that sort of basic technology.
Hearing that.
And I don't think so. I mean, I really did think you did an amazing job with it.
I lucked out on that. I definitely lucked out, and I'm quite delighted. Because generally in my books, the method of murder, although in the second book it became an issue, but for the most part it's fairly clear. And then the issue really becomes
not how, but who.
That's right, and why. In this one, the how is as big a question and as troubling when something apparently impossible has happened.
Right. And you were inspired, I am told, by Country Life magazine.
Yes, Country Life magazine, which drove my husband nuts. I love Country Life magazine. There's only one store in Montreal, as far as I know, that sells it. And so I go into it every time I possibly can. I get this Country Life, and it's actually about 3/4 of the magazine. It's one of these big British things, is ads for these magnificent estates And the rest of it is just details on how to live in those estates.
Oh, there's a
things like gardening.
social
and
cachet thing too, isn't
that's
there?
right. Who was at the hunt?
Right, at the hunt ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's engaged,
Who led
you know.
yes, and those wonderful pictures of the debutantes. And
Right.
it's hysterical. I lie in the bath and I read this, and I give myself a fictional budget, which, you know, depends on how flush I'm feeling that particular day. It goes from £5 million to £2 million, or sometimes it's modest, you know, $1 million, see what I could pick up just as a game. This gave my husband a heart attack the first time I played that game.
Oh, he thought you were going to really buy
He
an
actually
estate?
thought I might be so delusional. My brain might have been suffering from the bubbles, inhaled finally enough bubble bath that I'd lost it, or being driven nuts by your bugs. So at the back of one of these Country Life, they have a question to the readers, a whole bunch of different questions, details, and people can write in with the answers. And I got this from one of those. And I cut it out. This was many years ago when Still Life, my first book, had first come out. And I thought, I think I can use that one day. And sure enough,
there it was.
Book 4.
Well, also, one of the things that's so maddening about discussing a mystery is that you can only take it to a certain point. You can't discuss the play of the plot without ruining it for everybody, what's called a spoiler in giant letters. But one thing, I know this is a tribute to Agatha Christie, and it's a very classic design, and yet one of the things I like the best is you completely subverted a basic Agatha Christie tenet in your solution, which I enjoyed very much. Which, you know, she would have appreciated.
Oh, I wish we could talk about it. It's true. Yes, thank you. Thank you for seeing that. Not everybody did. My editor in the U.S. saw it immediately and laughed and laughed and loved it. But I'm not sure how many people kind of make that connection.
Well, what you have to ask is how many people are that familiar at this point with the Golden Age mystery, and therein lies the whole question. If you, like me, are a lifetime reader of it, then you know that there's a certain amount of in Sherlock Holmes, there are certain conventions, certain rules, certain machinery that makes the plot work, and all the rest of it. It's different in the private eye novel, and it's different in the classic country house murder. It has a closed circle of suspects. You've got people inside a manor or a country house, that a circle that can't really be permeated, because otherwise you could have too many suspects. So you've got a very limited suspect pool, i.e. the people who were in the house when the blizzard all snowed them in, or the storm mired them in the mud, or whatever it might be. You have, by happy accident, a sleuth of some competence.
What are the chances?
Always good, 100% in a country house murder. That's the great part of it. So the reader already is suspending disbelief that somehow, when the avalanche struck and everyone was in the lodge now for 3 days and the body turns up, fortunately, among the guests was...
Suddenly he rips off his mask and says...
Well, or it was Hercule Poirot all along on a little ski holiday or something, or it's Armand Gamache and his wife, Reine Marie.
That's right.
Queen Mary, Queen of the World. They're celebrating their 35th anniversary in this place of sentimental value. How lucky was it, that they were there? And then very often you do, because... if the crime is truly puzzling and no one can, just go, oh, ho, hum, it was George with the axe in the library, you often have a second murder in order to sort of, because the first one was perfect. The only way you can really ever hope to solve it is to have yet another crime.
That's right.
Which isn't quite so perfect,
That's
and everybody can sort of unravel things. But anyway, I did like the way you took those basic elements. And, P.D. James just published a new book called Private Patient, which I think, considering she is 88, I believe, is just an absolute tour de force. It is powered by rage.
Love hearing that.
Well, it is truly powered by rage at what the current British scene has become. This is a woman who worked much of her life in the British government, in administrative positions. And this book takes a shot at everything that she dislikes about modern Britain. Much of it would surprise you, because it's not really from the sort of old fart position railing away at the young, but it's really more of a lashing out about how, same thing as Obama, she could have written his inauguration speech, because she's really talking about greed and selfishness and people who are too lazy or too cowardly or felt too entitled. I mean, it's an amazing work.